It's the morning drive.
Good morning and welcome to the Morning Drive. I'm your host, Brooks Fiesinger, brooksfiesinger.com and MillionaireWho.com, where we help you stabilize your wallet, secure your future, and succeed in entrepreneurship and finance. I'm here with my co-host today, Hyundai Sonata. All right, let's get on the road. What are we discussing today? Today we are discussing opportunities. One of the biggest questions that I get, or biggest pushbacks I get is, hey, I love this. There's so much cool stuff we could do. I want to be successful. I want to be independent. I want to be financially free, but I can't find any opportunities, right? There's no opportunities in me. There's either no opportunities because of where I live. There's no opportunities because of how much money I have. There's no opportunities because I can't find any. For some reason, there's no opportunities. And a lot of people come up with this idea that there's no opportunities all over the place, right? I mean, it's always for some reason X, you know? It's because, again, they say they don't have the money, or it's because and you need money to make money, or they say, you know, well, their part of the country just doesn't have the opportunity in the real estate that we do, or, you know, they live somewhere or do something where, you know, say they just, you know, nobody's selling businesses, or the economy is too good right now. You know, the economy is so good that there's, you know, no opportunities, or the economy is so bad that there's no opportunities, or anything like that, right? I mean, it's just a plethora of random reasons why they insist there's no opportunities, and it's always, frankly, hogwash because, you know, it's just excuses, right? It's excuses not to do something. And it's almost silly how often our stupid excuses hold us back. And I've been guilty of that at times, right? But, you know, way too often, the reason why there's no opportunity is because we refuse to see it. And instead we insist that, again, you know, the economy is so bad that, you know, there's no way I could buy something right now. Or the economy is so good that nobody's selling, or everyone's asking for too much. Now that latter one, I'm personally guilty of. And I've said that a few times. I said, you know, I can't wait for the economy to crash so that, you know, I can actually start making some money, because when the economy is strong, everybody's blowing money and making stupid deals. Now that statement that I personally have made is stupid, right? It's a bad statement. It's incorrect, because, you know, the fact of the matter was I just wasn't looking in the right places, doing the right things. And it's funny because I'm saying that I'm holding myself back, yet I've even shared with you that I've made deals happen in the last few weeks and months, right? So I'm making them happen, but still using those stupid excuses as reasons why I'm not doing more. And those excuses really are without validity. Because, you know, the economy is good, great, right? The deals are just different. And maybe you have to, you know, find the opportunities because they're not spelled out the same way they are in a poor economy situation. And, you know, rates are low. So it's, you know, when you find those deals, you can get great capital situations so that you can have positive cash flow. I mean, there's so much positive things that happen that offset those negatives, right? And so way too often we find one little negative and we use that as an excuse for not being successful. When the truth is, it might be true. But that's not an excuse, because you know what? When the economy's good, you're going to complain that the economy's too good. And when the economy's bad, you're going to complain that the economy's too bad. And when there's, you know, when rates are too high, you're going to say you can't get a return on your money, or you can't get, you know, the rates are too high to create positive cash flows. When the rates are too low, you're going to say the costs are too high. You're always going to have some excuse. And your job isn't to come up with excuses why you can't. Is to come up with excuses why you can and figure out ways to make it so that you can. And I love this concept that I've heard before, which is, you know, if you said, oh, I learned I should never do that again because you had a bad experience with, say, for example, a rental or something like that, then you're already thinking poorly, because you should be thinking, how should I do that differently to make it a better experience next time, not, oh, I'm just going to write off this whole thing. You know, I know people who've bought rental properties and said, oh, I got phone calls all the time and it was awful and I was losing money every month, and therefore I would never buy real estate again, and only idiots buy real estate, I'm not buying real estate. And if you think about what they're really saying, they're saying, you know, because of a few factors that they didn't have to do, they're going to write off real estate. It doesn't even make sense if you think about it, right? you can hire a management company. You don't have to take the phone calls all the time. And, I wouldn't buy a real estate property that's negative cash flow, but a lot of people do. So maybe the answer there is, don't buy a property with negative cash flow, not don't buy a property at all. And so those kind of fallacies also block us from things. I hear a lot of people say things like, hey, I can't, X is going to decline over time, therefore I would never want to go in that industry. Even though that decline over time could be 150 years, and that could be an incredibly profitable business for the next 150 years. For oil or something like that. We live in an area where some people do oil and natural gas. And I've heard people say, I'm not going to go buy oil and natural gas because, we're all switching to electricity and we're never going to use natural gas or oil. It's going to take a long time, and odds are your wells will be dry before those happen. So those kind of fallacies, or those kind of, jump to the most extreme example and use that as rationalization not to do something, is really silly, and it kills us, because you can find a reason not to do every single business opportunity out there, every single real estate. There's a reason not to do all of them. But what you've got to learn to do is look for the reasons why you should do something. Look at the upside. Don't just look at the downside. I've been involved with transactions where people have said, let's not do it because, I think we can get a better deal, when we're staring at an opportunity where it's cash flow positive and just rolling in cash. And you sit there and say, every month that we complain that we can maybe get a better deal on this, we are literally losing money out of our pockets. And that deal that I'm referring to there ended up being spot on. It was exactly what we needed to do. It was beneficial for us. And yet somebody sat there and said, oh, but maybe we could do better, so let's not do it. Again, those are the silly kind of excuses we face. So the reason I'm pointing these out is to make you recognize that everybody else out there has those silly excuses when they're evaluating opportunities. And those silly excuses don't do anybody any good. The people who who are successful are the ones who look at that feedback, look at those concerns, and figure out how to mitigate them or find the diamonds in the rough. And so that's what you've got to do. You've got to go make things happen and not just use whatever the excuse of the month is on why you're not going to make things happen, because you're just holding yourself back, you're holding your family back, and you're holding your future back. And why do that? Why hold yourself back, right? You'd rather use some silly excuse to make yourself feel better for being a failure, right? It's your control. It's under your control. Stop using silly excuses to make yourself feel better for your failures, right? It's your fault, your responsibility. Nobody else's. It's your responsibility. And if you use excuses, when you point that finger, 3 fingers pointing back at yourself, right? It's your failure. Not a lack of opportunity, not situational. It's your fault. Sound brutal? Well, let's talk about getting over that hump, right? Let's talk about finding those opportunities. So frequently the issue is there's some problem with this 1 or 2 opportunities that I see, and there's no more. And someday there'll be more. The fact of the matter is there's massive opportunity right here, right now, right? Today, there are tons of opportunities for you. I don't care where in the world you are. I don't care what your situation is. There's massive amounts of opportunity staring you in the face, and you're not grabbing it. So why aren't you grabbing it? Odds are you're not grabbing it because of a lack of education, right? And I don't necessarily mean a college education. I don't mean a specific type of education. My point is, you don't understand the opportunities if you're not in there and, digging around a little bit. There's tons and tons of businesses for sale. And I've talked to several people who are selling businesses, and they tell me things like, well, I don't understand that industry. I don't know that industry. So there's no businesses that happen to align with my skill set. And my skill set is this narrow, right? So I would say, why don't you learn some new skill sets, right? If you start investigating things outside of your comfort zone and learning about them, then all of a sudden those opportunities start opening up. right? If you don't know anything about landscaping, but there's landscaping companies for sale, why don't you go learn about landscaping? Maybe you'll decide you don't want to get into it, but at least go learn about it. Right now, in virtually every city that I can find in the country, there are boatloads of businesses for sale. Tons of them, right? So, it might not be what you think you want to be doing, but you can't suggest there's not an ample amount of business opportunities today, right now, that you could go do. There's tons of them. So, why aren't you doing them? Well, odds are you're not doing them for one of the silly excuses I referred to before. I don't know anything about landscaping. I don't know anything about sewing. I don't know anything about shoe polishing. I don't know what the businesses are for you. But you don't, and most other people don't either. And right now I'm investigating a business for sale, and I don't know anything about it. But I realize that it's in an industry where there's not a lot of business savviness. And there's a few industries that I've identified personally that just don't have business savvy people in them. It's one of the reasons I like the dog daycare thing is, most of the dog daycares are run by people who have no idea how to run a business. So if the industry is full of people who don't know how to run a business, then you have ability to do things that they can't, such as be profitable and grow and take advantage of streamlined operations and a lot of other nice benefits like that. So there's a lot of benefits to industries where nobody's an expert, nobody's great. And I've been looking at another business that I'll tell you about in the future that's been similar, where it's, nobody understands it. There's not a lot of people that have the expertise. And the people that are involved are not business people. So it's a really cool niche. And you sit there and say, you know what? There's something here, but I don't know anything about it, and nobody else does either. That makes it a fantastic opportunity. Because if I get in there, there's not a lot of stiff competition because the competition doesn't know how to compete. The competition's very, very weak. And it's not because there's lack of opportunity, it's very weak because they don't know what they're doing. So it's a fantastic opportunity where I can actually go in there, figure out what's going on, and discover it as a heck of an opportunity and go take advantage of it. And the kicker is, I don't know if it's a good opportunity when I start investigating it. So if you go out there and look at the business listings, I work with some brokers, and then I also, just look at the postings. If you go through there, you can't tell me you're an expert on every one of those businesses and every one of them is a bad deal. Can you? No. So when you're lacking opportunities, go on there and start researching and investigating those different businesses. Become an expert in a few of those. Sit there and say, I don't know anything about catwalking, so I'm going to go investigate the catwalking industry. Or I don't know anything about landscaping, I'm going to investigate the landscaping company business. Or I don't know anything about car washes, I'm going to go investigate the car wash industry. That's how you uncover opportunities and deals, is by learning and researching and discovering. And you might think, well, 1,000 people are contacting each one of these people selling a business and they're inundated with requests. No, if you're a serious buyer, go talk to them. You don't have to know anything about that specific business, right? But if you're looking for businesses, talk to them. They're going to talk to you because they want to sell the business. And you just might be the buyer. And you might actually just be the buyer, not just to them, but to yourself. Because when you learn about those, you're going to discover that there's opportunities there that you don't realize. You can learn it, you can figure it out. It might be more interesting than you think. So just go out there and start doing it, go figure it out, right? It's almost laughable that we say there's no opportunities when there's thousands of business listings right around your corner, literally right around your corner. But because it's not the one thing you expected to do, you say, oh, there's nothing there. No opportunities. I'm poor and miserable because there's no opportunities. Really, you're too lazy to take advantage of opportunities, to stop being lazy. There's a lot of other things. I've heard a lot of examples of people who have made a lot of money taking advantage of zoning disparities or property disparities. And there's a property that we found recently that has a unique zoning situation where they are a zoned floodplain. Okay, oh, whoa, floodplain. I learned never buy floodplain. I'm gonna lose my property. The world's gonna come to an end. Right, is that what you're thinking? Exactly. Because you're not doing your research and you don't know what's going on. This floodplain, zoned floodplain, isn't actually in a floodplain, right? So this supposed floodplain is actually not a floodplain, but it has floodplain zoning, okay? So what does it mean to not be a floodplain, but be a floodplain zoning? Well, because it's close to a river, it received the zoning of F, or in this area, which stands for floodplain. However, based on all the studies that have been done on flooding in the area, it does not fall into even a 100-year flood zone, right? It doesn't fall into a flood zone. So it has this F zoning, but it's not a flood zone. What does that mean? First of all, it means the property is dirt cheap because nobody wants it, just because of the zoning. Now, there's two opportunities I could take on here. I could buy the property, then get the zoning changed, because I believe with the evidence supporting the fact that it won't flood, you should actually be able to get this zoning changed. It's up on a hill, it really is not gonna flood. So there's a good chance you get the zoning changed. The minute you get the zoning changed, what's gonna happen? The value's gonna skyrocket. Second opportunity is there's some cool business things you can do with an F-zoned area that you can't do with other areas. So for example, in our area, there's a bunch of uses that you can do within a flood-zoned area, like parks, recreational activities, fishing, forestry, a whole list of things. The fact of the matter is, a lot of those things you can't do in a residential area, or you can't do in another area. So people look at this and sit there and say, oh, it's an F zone, stay away, awful property, right? They freak out. If you do your research, you can sit there and say, look, it's really not gonna flood, and I can do things on there that I can't do somewhere else. That can open up a huge opportunity. So here's a plot of land that is dirt cheap because nobody wants it, for a reason that's not true, with a special zoning provision that lets you do things that nobody else can do. Think about that for a minute, right? Unique, rare, cheap opportunity. That's the gold mine when we talk about opportunities, right? It's like, it's seeing through what no one else sees. But if you don't go do the research on that property, if you don't go research to find out, oh, great, when they did all the flood studies, it's not gonna flood. This area actually is cut out of the flood zone. Yet, when they did the zoning, they just zoned all of it flood zone. Right? That's an opportunity. That's a massive opportunity. But do you know how you find that opportunity? You don't find that opportunity by looking in the real estate listings. You find that opportunity by going in and researching the auditor's website and researching the, drawings and the floodplain research. It's learning, it's education, it's figuring out what's going on there. And you know what? You get a lot of duds when you do that. There's a lot of you dig in, you're like, oh, it's exactly what it says it is. But it's a magic what you find sometimes. You find things like, hey, this old house actually has 5 lots with it. So while I might not want this old house, the lots are worth more than they're asking for this house. Therefore, it's a killer opportunity. Or like this zoning situation, I can either flip the zoning, or I can take advantage of the unique zoning situation. Either one of those can be massive, massive opportunities. No reason you can't take advantage of something similar, right? I'm finding these all at the same time. Found something else with these apartments. Found a ton of apartments that have gone on the market because rates have gone up a tiny little bit. For some reason, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of buyers, so the pricing seems very, very good. Again, other people are saying, oh, I'm not buying right now. The rates went up 1%. The rates went up like 0.15%, and all of a sudden people are running away. Look, if it's cash flow positive and it's a good business investment, who cares if the rates went up 0.15%? You're gonna walk away over 0.15% rates increase? We're still a historical low, and I don't care if the rates are 50%. If I can buy a cash flow positive property at 50% money, I'll still do it, right? Why does the rates really actually matter? I don't get that. Right? I mean, if you're going to buy a property, you want to get the best rate that you can get, but if you can get a rate that's cash flow positive and coverage itself plus, vacancy loss plus, maintenance repair, then who cares? The fact of the matter is, all of a sudden, when 6 months ago these properties were going like this, I'm watching them sit there for a minute, and they're not sitting there for a minute because they're bad properties. They're sitting there for a minute because people aren't buying them up as quickly. Now I'm sitting there with like a smorgasbord of options. I'm like, good deal, good deal, good deal. Ran the numbers on all three of them. Got 3 properties right now. The numbers are all excellent for multifamily properties, right? Great deal right now. And I'm looking at them and I'm sitting there saying, look, all 3 of these are good deals, so how can I afford them? And when it comes down to it, maybe I won't be able to get all 3 of them. Maybe I'll get 1 of them, maybe I'll get 2 of them, maybe I'll get all 3 of them, maybe I'll get 0 of them. But the fact of the matter is, they meet all my requirements. They're exactly what I want, and they're available right now. One of those properties is again, kind of one of those unique situations where on the surface, you look at it and you're like, it's not so nice. It looks a little sketchy. Then you go drive down the street, and that's the other kicker, right? Doing your research, getting your education. Go drive down the streets. Learn what's going on. I love the Thomas Edison quote, right? And I forget exactly what it is, but essentially, I didn't fail 5,000 times. I discovered 5,000 ways not to create a light bulb, right? Maybe you're not going to find that opportunity every time you drive down a street, but you're going to learn this neighborhood's bad or this neighborhood's good, and you're going to start getting in tune with what you're looking for. That's the kicker. You got to start getting in tune. You got to start small, start figuring out what's going on so you know how to take advantage of those opportunities again. So I'm going down the street and I'm sitting there saying, wow, this neighborhood is very nice. Do you know what the junkiest property in this neighborhood is? The one that's for sale. Personally, I would like to buy the junkiest property in the neighborhood because you can clean it up a little bit and it's going to increase its value drastically, right? So here's this property is. It's not awful, but it's definitely the worst property in the neighborhood. But it's also a very unique property because, there's a lot of multifamilies. This is one of those multifamily communities. So it's like you drive in and then there's a bunch of buildings in the back, and those buildings are all multifamilies that you can live in. I don't want to quite call it an apartment complex. I mean, it is an apartment complex, but it's a little kind of unique. It's more like a bunch of houses that are all part of the little community. And, again, people are probably staying away from it because it doesn't look perfect. But just because it doesn't look perfect doesn't mean it's not in good mechanical shape. It doesn't mean, you can't create appreciation as well. And I know a lot of people that get involved with real estate that look for those opportunities, not to do true fixer-upper, but to, buy a place that's really going to appreciate and value from forced appreciation, stuff that you do for that property to improve it. So again, you're going to increase the value, and it's fully rented. It's got great cash flows already. What you could very easily do is buy it, take the cash flows, improve the property a little bit, go get another note on the property, completely pay off what you have, therefore essentially allowing you to get all your money out of it, and then just allow the cash flows to roll in. I mean, it could be one of those properties that literally you pull out 100% of your principal within 6 months of buying it, and it still churns out massive cash flow. It's just a cool opportunity. I like it. So, as I said, there's tons of real estate deals out there, and for some of those real estate deals, you're not going to know what's going on just by sitting there and reading, the listings on some real estate agent's website. You're going to have to go get your boots dirty. Go walk. I've heard other real estate investors talk about how they jog neighborhoods or they drive through neighborhoods all the time just to get to know, when things are changing, what's going on. That's one of the reasons I know a lot of people say that they gladly invest in another city. I like to invest locally, and the reason I'm going to invest locally is because when you're in another city, you're kind of taking generalities. It's almost like buying a mutual fund. Like, in general, the city's going to improve, or in general, the city's going to decline. But when you live in an area, you can actually sit there and say, this neighborhood's up and coming. This neighborhood's going downhill. You start learning truly what's going on in your neighborhoods. When you know what's going on truly with your neighborhoods, opportunities arise. So we talked about a few opportunities here that have faced me just in the last week. Literally in the last week, I've got a ton of business opportunities that have come up, businesses I can buy. There's some great apartment complex deals that have come up. There's another real estate deal that I'm looking at that's a commercial real estate deal. Again, cash flow positive. It's got all the numbers line up. and that's a commercial, and then the raw land situation where it found a zoning disparity of raw land. This is all within 1 week, right? The kicker is these kind of opportunities show up all the time, right? You've got to be in tune. You got to pay attention to what's going on in front of you. None of these opportunities would have been great if all I did was look at job listing, or not job listings, but real estate listings, right? You can't tell in a real estate listing how, if there's something magic about this. You got to go on the auditor's website. You got to walk into the, read the land plats. You got to go drive the neighborhoods. You got to go talk to people in those areas. If you're not doing those kind of things, then you're not learning, you're not educating. And again, you might find 5,000 reasons not to buy something and decide not to do it. Great. That's learning. That's figuring things out. That's improving your situation and finding those opportunities because they're out there, right? If you can't find opportunities, it's because you're not learning and you're not educating yourself and you're not finding them. It's not that they're not there. You can't wait for things to fall on your plate. If you wait for things to fall on a plate, man, you're setting yourself up for failure. Speaking of that, though, sometimes things do land on your plate, and we often don't see them as opportunities. I make sure I always talk to mentors and learn from people and try to talk to people. And there's a guy I was talking to about his business, and I just literally was meeting him for lunch, getting to know him a little bit. And not only was I learning a whole bunch, eventually he was like, hey, I need somebody to help me with this. You seem like you understand it. I'll pay you to do it. And I'm like, okay, great. So not only am I learning from this guy, he's literally paying me to learn from him. I mean, think about that for a minute, right? Now, this might not be the world's best job opportunity, but it's not a job. I'm just getting paid to help this guy out with something that I want to learn about because I want to do it someday. I mean, think about that for a minute. You think about paying for an education. I'm getting paid for an education. He's actually paying me to learn more about what I'm doing. Is that not cool? I mean, seriously. I mean, getting paid to learn? Yeah, that's the opportunity. But how many people just don't ask? I mean, I can't tell you how many people send me emails all the time asking me for advice, but they don't, I don't get a lot of people that sit there and say, hey, let's go out to lunch and talk. I don't get a lot of people that take genuine interest in what's going on and want to really learn and want to really engage. In fact, sometimes I get back to someone and I say, hey, go do these things and then let's review it. And they never do them. They never get back because they don't want to put in the work. They don't want to find those opportunities. They just want somebody else to hand them something. And maybe I will hand them something eventually when I'm working with them and get to know them and that opportunity comes up. But you can't just sit back and wait for somebody to hand you something. It doesn't work like that. But too many people do it. Way too many people do it. I've got a friend of mine who might actually watch these, hopefully he does, who has been working on this business, and he, sometimes I get frustrated with him because he doesn't take all my advice, but he engages with me regularly. He checks in. Oddly, it makes me want to help him. I mean, here's a guy, he's getting essentially free advice from someone who charges other people for advice just because he's engaged with me. And he was a younger guy who met me at a conference that I was speaking at, and he's just kept in touch for years, and I'm excited to watch his businesses grow and succeed. But once again, he engages with me. It makes me want to help him. So go engage with somebody. That creates opportunities. You create with opportunities when you engage with other experts. You've heard of people saying, be friends with other successful people. Don't just be friends with people who you've always known. Doesn't mean you have to alienate your friends, but make new friends that are into the kind of stuff you are, who are successful like you want to be. And sometimes they do just literally land on your plate. I've got a friend who had a guy at church who had a business he was trying to sell. He's trying to retire and get out of it. And he said he wanted to go to somebody he knew, and essentially he was going to let this thing go for nothing, right? Very cheap. And my friend was sitting there saying, should I do this? And I'm like, do it now, right? Like, this is a killer opportunity. You love the idea. You have plenty of opportunity to be successful with it. You're going to do a good job at it. You're going to, be successful. You have all the skill sets that you need to make it happen. You want to do it. It's up your alley. And yet there's always these excuses. Well, I don't know if it's the right time. Maybe I should just do it myself instead of buying the existing business. Maybe I should wait. And I'm like, you can't always just wait. I understand maybe you need to wait till this weekend, but if you put things off all the time, you're never going to start figuring it out and you're never going to make headway on it. And it's just one of those examples where I do a head slap and I sit there and say, man, how many of us beg for those opportunities to land on his lap, but he doesn't view it as an opportunity. He doesn't realize that, this magic's happened. He's had a wonderful, amazing opportunity to land on his plate. It's a killer deal. He could make a killing on this thing. He could do the kind of stuff he loves to do. He wants to do this. This aligns with everything. It aligns with his interests and his financial needs, and it's a killer opportunity. And he's turning it down. And he's turning it down by inaction. It's not that he's actually saying, I don't want this deal, I'm going to turn it away. He's turning it down from inaction. And he's not acting. And because he's not acting, he's losing it. And I'm watching him lose it. And I'm sitting there thinking, my gosh, you're going to regret this forever, because these kind of opportunities are rare. But so often I see people have amazing opportunities that land right on their lap, and they don't even see it's an opportunity. They're like, I don't know if I want to do this right now. Maybe it'd be better if I wait 6 months. That opportunity is not going to be there in 6 months. You can't wait 6 months on an opportunity. You got to take advantage of the opportunities when they show up. So now I'm watching this guy, and I feel bad for him. He's going to lose a huge opportunity, one of the best opportunities he's going to have across his entire life, from inaction, just failure to act. And so that's what's happening, right? When you're educating yourself and you're learning and you know what's going on, there's going to be tons of opportunities all over the place. You've got to research them. You've got to dig into them. But when you research them and dig into them, you find them all over the place. Some of them are going to land on your lap, and you can't write them off and just say it's not the right time, it's not the right place. You got to seize those opportunities when they present themselves. Things don't work on your schedule, you have to work on their schedule. You got to get out of your box, start learning things new. When you start learning things new and you understand what's going on in other worlds, just opportunities await. If you don't see opportunities, it's because you need to go get yourself more educated. You need to go dig into this stuff. There's thousands of job listings, or not job listings, thousands of company listings right now. Go dig into them. Go dig into company learning, start learning about them. Chug through them, right? Because as you learn about them, you're going to figure out some of them are killer opportunities. There's tons of real estate deals right now. Start digging into them. See a plot of land, see a property, go research it. If you think a property is too expensive, research it anyway. If you think a property is in the wrong place, research it anyway. Do drive-bys, right? If there's no opportunities, are you telling me that you spend 100% of your free time driving through neighborhoods, researching businesses, investigating stuff with the auditor? Is that what you're doing with your time and still saying there are no opportunities? I guess not. I think you're sitting there waiting for them to land on your lap, and when they do land on your lap, you're still not seeing the opportunities that present themselves. Because it's not the right time, it's not the right situation. There's some reason why you don't want to do it right now. But the opportunities are there right now. And I don't care when you watch this. You can watch this in 6 years. The opportunities will be available right now when you're watching it. Opportunities are always available. They're all around you. And the only reason you don't see it, again, because you're not researching, you're not learning, you're not getting educated about what's going on around you. You're not doing drive-bys. You're not doing auditor research. So it's time to go do that and make the impossible happen. Learn more at MillionaireWho.com.
It's the morning drive.